Washington Street Strip with some videos. I think there were videos that got out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I would imagine there were some videos from a lot of campuses across the country. And we saw what North Carolina did. One thing, John, I think that Iowa State has done all summer long with their athletic program, specifically with their football program. I think they've done a tremendous job. When a lot of people had spikes after the 4th of July, Iowa State really didn't. I think that's because Matt encouraged his guys to stay, even had some activities for them. But from athletic director Jamie Pollard on down, Iowa State has seemingly had a pretty good handle on all this with their athletes.
Well, I think they've done a great job of doing everything in their power to try to put these guys in the best position to have a season. And Mark Hoberly, Iowa State's athletic trainer, he does a tremendous job with really keeping an eye on guys and getting the message across. But, Robert, it doesn't take much for it to trigger. As you just said, we saw that like on the North Carolina campus. And so you're still nervous, even though they're doing everything, they're taking all the right steps, guys could have all the right intentions. It doesn't mean that at some point somebody's not going to get infected and that, and that it could spread very quickly within a football team. And so, you're still nervous, even though you're encouraged by that result. I don't think you can ever get too comfortable because as we've seen with all this stuff, it just, from day to day, week to week, it changes so much. And so I don't know that, I told Craig Way yesterday from Texas, we were having a conversation. I said, man, if we get to your game Thanksgiving weekend in Austin, I'll consider the season a success, regardless of what our records are or anything else. Just if we can get to that game and get to that we get that deep into it, then I'd consider it a success. But it's going to be hard. There's no question there's going to be challenges, and I'm happy that the Big 12 is going to try to do this and try to get it going. The big question is going to be, can they get all the way from start to finish? And that's it's impossible for anybody to know the right answer to that right now.
No, it is, and I'm a little different than a lot of people. Maybe even your opinion there about it sounds to me like you kind of think they'll get to the start, and a lot of people do, but everybody's worried about how far along they get or if they can get to the finish. Talking about college football in general, and let's just be more specific: the Big 12 and Iowa State, and of course Oklahoma State. That's what we're talking about here. John, I'm nervous about the start. I feel like if they can get to September 12th, and remember, I know Iowa State's. Here's how about this? I was ranking the non-conference schedules for the teams and difficulty of the non-conference schedule. And of course, TCU lost Tennessee Tech and changed over to SMU over the weekend. So that's probably the toughest of all the non-conference games is their Iron Skillet game with TCU. But before that, I had Iowa State with Louisiana Lafayette. I had K-State with Arkansas State and Oklahoma State with Tulsa. In my opinion, those were the three hardest non-conference games. I mean, when you start ranking toughness on non-conference, and Louisiana, Arkansas State, and Tulsa are the three toughies, that's a different year.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you, Robert. Iowa State originally had a non-conference schedule, and I start doing my summer research, and I'm seeing all these Iowa connections on the South Dakota football team, and thinking, hey, these would be some good storylines, and then you blow all that up and throw it away, and the Iowa Corn Cyhawk rivalry with Iowa State and Iowa, you blow all that up and throw it away. You crumple up everything you found on Ball State after they stepped in for UNLV. So, I mean, there's four schools that I basically studied that now I've got no use for any of that information. But Louisiana, I kind of took a look at over the weekend, and they're good. They won 11 games last year. And,
oh, yeah.
And a starting quarterback returning who's very, very good. He's undersized. He's 5'10", but he's got a really good arm, and Levi Lewis. And so I saw Stuart Mandel did an adjusted top 25 given the conferences that are playing, and he had Louisiana in there at number 25. So I think it'll be a real test for Iowa State in week one. And then you don't get any softening of the blow. It's right into the Big 12 from there. So this is going to be an unusual year, and I think people's normal perception of what a record is or the number of wins that they consider a season to be a success, you've got to alter it a little bit this year when you don't have maybe a couple of scheduled in victories automatically that kind of pop you up to that 8-9 win mark or whatever your variable is that you go by. I think for everybody that number might probably be a little bit lower this year of where the bar is.
No doubt about it. While you were answering that question, it just struck me. There are not that many states now because the MAC preceded the Big Ten in postponing or canceling their season for the fall. There are not that many states where you have major college teams that are playing and a major college team that is not. But that is the case in Iowa. What has that been like? Because we know the Iowa parents have risen up. We know that Iowa was one of the teams, if they voted in the Big Ten, because some people apparently can't remember if they had a vote or not. Um, but Iowa was one that was definitely, favoring playing this season. What's that like in your state right now where the Hawkeyes, it's not only that the Hawkeyes aren't playing the Cyclones are playing and the Hawkeyes aren't.
Really unusual. Obviously, I've never seen anything like this, and I do feel bad for those guys. I feel bad for all those players in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 who've done so much work to get ready for the season, and then to have it not there is just so hard. And man, I feel for those guys. I honestly do. And the key word I think you said there is the Big Ten. The Iowa people, the president, their athletics director, argued to play the season, and I think that the argument isn't necessarily to play the season; it's to start the season, as you mentioned earlier, because we don't know how deep we can get into this thing, but you just want to at least try it. I think that's where the Big 12 came down and the Pac, the SEC, the ACC. Let's at least try it, and if we have to shut it down, we have to shut it down. But man, your heart goes out to those kids that aren't even going to get the chance to try it. And I'm with you, man. I'm nervous even about getting to the start. I mean, it seems like it's sneaking up super fast on us. But at the same time, it feels like we've seen how much can change in a 3-week period with COVID, and so there's a lot that can happen between now and September 12th. So yeah, it's just everything's written in pencil this year, Robert. I mean, everything is written in pencil. Nothing's written in pen.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm pretty sure you probably got these by now. But yesterday we have a new connection. I guess with Tom Bowman is moved over, and there's a new person taking his position. Tom's still at Learfield IMG College, but we got our protocols for safety. I got on an email. Dave Hunziker is actually looking at broadcasting from a different booth and kind of being like a designated survivor because we all know that if somebody within our team got COVID-19, you know, you may not have 2 weeks to quarantine to the next game, unless it's an open week. So it's crazy for broadcast. From what I understand, on the sidelines, we're going to have a 5 yard by 5 yard area, and that's where we have to stay. Which for me is really going to be that's going to be a chore.
For Ben Bruns too. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
There's no doubt. That'll be
oh.
tough.
So yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to be crazy broadcasting.
Oh, there's no question. And broadcasting without a normal number of fans in the stands in its own right is unique. If for some reason we had to go to Remy broadcast, that would be really, really strange I think for all of us. But even getting to these games, I think we're probably going to travel separately from the team just because they're trying to keep their bubble as secure as they possibly can. And so, fortunately for Iowa State, we can drive to our destinations on the road this year. And so I think, we've got a really talented young broadcaster on our team, and Brent Bloom, who's our producer and does our pregame work, and he could step in and call the game if something happened to me. So he and I will basically travel separately to all these games for the very reasons you just said. You got to have a designated survivor. So we're both going to try our best to stay healthy, but we're going to stay apart as much as we possibly can. And so it is a crazy time in the broadcasting booth as well, and the limitations on interviews and how are you going to get post game comments from players, and how are you going to get your coach? Are you going to be able to get them at halftime? All these things that on a normal year are given this year are in question, and so you got to work through all of it. But I realize that the halftime interview right now is not at the top of Matt Campbell's list of things that he's worried about, and so we'll have to cross that bridge in a week or two here. But it's hard for us to get answers because, and understandably, because he has got so many things going on around him right now that he has to put them in the correct order. So it's craziness for everybody, Robert, on every campus, and you just try to navigate through it the best you can. The one thing I've said about Matt Campbell through the years is the crazier things are around him, I think the better he is. I think he's really good at handling adversity. No two greater examples than in your state, coming down to Norman in 2017 when Jacob Park was basically done with the team that week, and all of a sudden you're putting Kyle Kemp, the fifth-year senior, who's taken 2 snaps in his career, and there's your starting quarterback, and moving a linebacker to your other quarterback spot, backing up, and you go beat Oklahoma as a 33-point underdog. And then the next year to go to Stillwater with the quarterback situation kind of unsettled, and you're 1-3 and looking right down the barrel at 1-4, and Matt somehow circles the wagons, and Brock Purdy goes out and has a tremendous game, and you beat a top 25 Oklahoma State team on the road to save that season. And so I think when Matt is facing the most adversity is where he's at his very best, and there's no shortage of adversity in this season.
Yeah, and it's really funny because on Sirius XM, a lot of times during the pandemic, they've run classic games from all the different Big 12 schools, and so I've heard a few of ours that got run. But one day I was driving and they were running that game in Stillwater from
Mm-hmm.
2018, where Iowa State came in and dropped a bomb named Brock Purdy on Oklahoma State. It was very effective, and I ended up listening to almost that entire game with your crew doing it, and it was kind of interesting. Yeah, I think I actually I chalked it up as a learning experience because I thought, okay, you know what? Every once in a while, you should go back and listen to a game you did, but listen to the
Mm-hmm.
other crew that did it and see some of the things they do. And obviously, I think we've said this to each other, and I know Dave has done it as well in conversations with you. But yeah, there are crews in the league, and I think all the crews do well, and we're pretty good friends with I think everybody in this league, and I think that's great. But there are crews I really like to listen to, and it's funny. I like the states. I like Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
those are my favorites. I think to listen to.
Well, I
So
appreciate that. I love listening to you guys too, and it's definitely a land grant. That's probably a land grant institution bias on our
yeah,
part. Uh,
it is.
but you know what? We are alike. I've always said the people in Stillwater. I don't know that there is a nicer collection of people to us when we come in. Everybody is just first class and treats you with such respect, and you just appreciate the heck out of that. And hopefully, we're the same way in Ames towards your
Yep.
people. And it just, we're blessed in this league, and I'll give Brian Estridge from TCU a lot of credit for kind of getting all the announcers together and kind of forming this bond that I think has really separated us from some other leagues in terms of how close our crews are. And I think it's awesome, and it's been a really good development, and we can learn so much from each other. I mean, sharing information right now is so important as we try to navigate through all this stuff. But I love listening to you guys, and I'll tell you what, another one of my favorite things to do, Robert, is on Monday nights when we get done with our coaches show is to hop in my car and flip on tune in and find the big Monday game and listen to the announcers from across the league on basketball season. And I really enjoy the heck out of that too. It's fun to hear the other guys around the league.
Oh, no doubt. Hey, last thing, we got to talk a little football. If we can get to the start, and you kind of went over the schedule with Louisiana, and then you guys open up with TCU on the road. But then I think one of the more compelling games early in the schedule in the Big 12 is going to be Oklahoma's trip out to Ames to take on the Cyclones. Um, you guys, the more and more I look at it with that three-headed tight end, you guys can do some formations others can't. With Brock being back, with Brees Hall, and I bet the running back position will have more depth to it with what they've been able to develop in the offseason. And all of those defensive players. You guys have got a big time playmaker at each level of the defense. Bailey up front, obviously several linebackers. I love Rose, and then in the secondary as well. Um, Iowa State's a legit. I think there's maybe four teams, in my opinion, that are legit to win this year and win the league. And Iowa State's one of those. So how do you feel all that's coming together on the field?
It's fascinating to hear you say that because I really had the exact same thought probably within the last week that, a lot of years you feel like Oklahoma is the overwhelming favorite, but with everything that's happened, now Kennedy Brooks is gone and, they've had a lot of attrition and they've got a new quarterback, even though he's very, very talented. He's a new quarterback. And so I don't think it's as obvious as it's been in other years that Oklahoma is the overwhelming favorite. I'm not saying they're not the favorite. I think they still are. But I do feel like Oklahoma State, Texas, and Iowa State are all right there. And it could be a very wide open league race this year. We saw Baylor sneak in there last year and get into the championship game. And, I think it's going to be really wide open this year. But I think those four at the top probably have the best chance. But there's so many variables. The way rosters are changing on a daily basis. And, if you have some star players continuing to opt out as we get closer and closer to the season, these rosters are very fluid, and they're in flux. And so, things can change. I could be talking to you in the same position a week from now and saying, man, I think TCU is the team to beat. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be crazy. We'll have to kind of go a day at a time and a week at a time, literally, just like we're always hearing in the cliches in the sports world. But I do identify those four schools on paper as having really almost an equal opportunity with all four of them to get to that Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, we've kept you a long time, but Iowa State, I haven't seen anywhere where Matt's had any of his players opt out.
No, not yet. And,
Okay.
you hope that's the case. But obviously, if a player does do that at Iowa State or some other school in the Big 12, hey, with everything going on,
Yeah.
you certainly understand if a player wants to opt out. You get it. And so I don't think anybody will be critical if that does end up happening.
No, I don't think so either. But it doesn't surprise me because, like I said, I think it's been as good a summer as possible with the way they've done things at Iowa State. Oklahoma State's fortunate. Mike Gundy said again yesterday, no one has even come to his office to even discuss the possibility of opting out of this season. So we'll see if that hopefully, knock on wood, that stays put for both schools. Hey, John, I appreciate it, and again, look forward to seeing you guys. Th- this is you talked about your schedule. Uh, this is the year West Virginia, Iowa State, Texas, Texas Tech, all four of what would be the longest trips for us in the Big 12 all come to Stillwater.
Ooh,
So yeah,
that's
we
fortunate.
easily
Yeah,
will be driving to every game. So hey, take
good.
care, and hopefully we'll see you here soon.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me, Rob. Appreciate you.
All right, John Walters, play-by-play voice of the Iowa State Cyclones.